ever get the feeling that some languages they hold, like more than just words, that they carry history and culture, even identity? That's the journey we're taking today, diving deep into the world of Hebrew. You've shared your interest in Hebrew, and we've got some amazing linguistic discoveries we think you'll love. We're talking ancient inscriptions, unexpected connections, like you wouldn't believe the link between a farmer's calendar from like 10th century BCE and the letters you're reading right now.
Wow.
We're going to trace Hebrew's evolution, ancient to modern, not just what happened, but why it still matters. Ready to unlock these secrets.
Absolutely. What's so captivating about Hebrew is it's not isolated. Imagine like a family tree of languages, branches going back thousands of years. Hebrew's part of the Semitic family, shares an ancestor with Aramaic, Akkadian, that was ancient Mesopotamia.
I see.
But it goes even deeper. Hebrew's story is woven with the Canaanite languages, spoken right where Hebrew would eventually, well, flourish.
It's like layers of history, each one revealing something new. But how do we know what people said back then?
That's where it gets exciting. Archaeologists, they find these inscriptions, like voices from the past. The Shebna inscription, for example, 7th century BCE, a tangible link to Hebrew centuries before, the Common Era.
Wow, holding something that old. It's more than just age, right? It's like we're hearing echoes of how they spoke, how the language worked way back then.
Exactly.
But that's not the only one, right? There's more.
Oh, absolutely. There's debate about even older ones. The Mount Ebal tablet, maybe around 1200 BCE.
Wow.
And the Khirbet Qeiyafa shard, possibly even 1000 BCE.
Incredible.
They're still being studied, authenticated. But the possibility of how old they might be, that's huge for understanding early writing.
Like piecing together a puzzle. Each discovery adds a piece to the story. Speaking of puzzles, what about the Gezer calendar? What's so special about it?
The Gezer calendar, 10th century BCE, it's a glimpse into daily life. Farmers used it to track seasons, agriculture, a little
Like
niches.
stone-carved farmer's almanac.
Exactly. But here's the thing. It's not the Hebrew script we know today. It's closer to Phoenician. And get this, the Phoenician alphabet. Through the Greeks, Etruscans. It led to our Latin alphabet.
Our alphabet from a farmer's calendar. That's a direct line. You said something about no vowels, though.
Right, no vowels. It's hard for us to imagine, but try reading anything with only consonants. Early Hebrew was like that.
I can't even imagine. Must have made understanding written Hebrew quite difficult, no?
Definitely makes you appreciate those early scholars. Studying, preserving. It's through them that we get to understand those nuances.
So we've gone from whispered theories to actual inscriptions, a language with such deep roots, surprising connections to how we communicate now. But we've only just begun, so we've established Hebrew's got deep roots connected to this whole ancient family of languages. But for most people, Hebrew, it means the Bible, right?
Yeah.
Almost like biblical Hebrew is its own thing.
Yeah.
Right, and it makes sense. The Bible is such a significant text. For many, it's their first encounter with the language, But here's the thing, even within the Bible, Hebrew wasn't just frozen in time. It changed, adapted, like any living language does over centuries.
So not one biblical Hebrew, but more like phases.
Exactly, a spectrum. Take texts from the 10th to 6th centuries BCE, kings, kingdoms, leading up to the Babylonian exile. That's what scholars often call archaic biblical Hebrew.
Okay, so that's early Hebrew. How is it different from, what we think of as the typical style?
Well, think how language evolves. Words change, grammar shifts, new stuff pops up. Archaic Hebrew gives us a peek into those old speech patterns. The Song of Moses, Song of Deborah, they show it. This cool contrast to the later forms of the language.
Like you can hear those little dialect shifts even between generations now, within families.
Exactly. Now, moving into the 8th to 6th centuries BCE, we hit what's often called standard biblical Hebrew. That's what most people associate with the Bible overall.
So this is like Isaiah, Jeremiah, David, and Goliath. That kind of Hebrew.
Spot on. The language of the time, what those scribes and scholars would have been using as they shaped the Hebrew Bible. But even then, it didn't stop evolving.
There's more.
Oh, yeah. 5th to 3rd centuries BCE, Persian period, that's late biblical Hebrew. You see it in books like Ezra, Nehemiah, similar to the standard form, but it's starting to use some foreign words like for government, administration, reflecting the politics of the time.
That makes sense. Languages pick up influences. It's bound to happen. So events, cultural exchange, it all left its mark.
And get this, late biblical Hebrew also starts using the imperial Aramaic script, which, and we'll get into this more, is directly related to the Hebrew script we use today.
Wow, a script from the Persian Empire evolving into modern Hebrew. Wild. But this whole thing, biblical Hebrew not being static, it changes how we read those texts, doesn't it?
100%. It's not just trivia. It changes our whole understanding. It's like realizing Shakespeare didn't speak exactly like we do. Language becomes a window right into history, culture, how ideas develop.
So much more depth to it. But speaking of history, what happened to Hebrew after the Bible? It didn't just vanish.
You're right. Languages are resilient. They shift, they evolve, sometimes they take a back seat. And that's where we get to a really interesting and often misunderstood part of the story. Hebrew's decline as a spoken language alongside the rise of Aramaic.
Aramaic. That feels familiar, like we've touched on it before.
With good reason. See, 6th century BCE, Babylonian exile happens. Israelites, uprooted, new culture, and that culture's language, the one for trade, diplomacy, it was Aramaic.
It really makes you think, suddenly uprooted, new culture, language you might not know well. Did Hebrew just stop being spoken in daily life?
It's a common idea that Hebrew, poof, gone, replaced by Aramaic just like that. But like most language shifts, it was way more complicated. Aramaic, it was on the rise, but Hebrew, especially written, it stayed important, like religious contexts, scholarship, like a treasured, heirloom passed down even when new tools come along.
So Hebrew was still there, just. Aramaic was the everyday, and Hebrew was for certain parts of life.
Exactly. And we've got proof. The Dead Sea Scrolls, those texts, 3rd century BCE to 1st century CE, total game changer, showed Hebrew was alive, being used right alongside Aramaic.
The Dead Sea Scrolls just keep giving us more to think about, huh?
They show this linguistic diversity. Hebrew, Aramaic, even Greek was there for international stuff, not just one replacing the other, but this dynamic, multilingual world.
Makes you appreciate how adaptable languages were, especially back then, the need to communicate, to bridge cultures, but also keep your identity.
You've hit on it. Language is more than words, right? It's culture, history, connecting with each other. And nothing shows that better than, the revival of Hebrew.
We can't not talk about the revival. Taking a language mostly used in religious settings, scholarship, and making it living again. That's power.
And the revival, it means talking about one man, Eliezer ben Yehuda, gave his life to bringing this ancient language back.
Ben Yehuda, the father of modern Hebrew. What a story.
So late 19th century, these national movements are popping up, right? Ben Yehuda, he has this radical idea. Revive Hebrew, but as a modern spoken language.
That is bold. Taking something from scripture and making it how people talk every day. I can't imagine that was easy.
Oh, he got resistance. People doubted, even ridiculed him, thought it was impossible. But Ben Yehuda, he believed in language's power to unite. A scattered people wanting a shared identity. He knew language could do that.
His dedication was incredible. Raising his son, Ben Zion, to be the first modern native speaker, only Hebrew at home.
That shows you how strong his belief was. And it wasn't just talk. His dictionary, the complete dictionary of ancient and modern Hebrew, huge. It standardized the language, added new words for a changing world.
New words, old words revived. He was making Hebrew work for modern life, all while fighting for it to be recognized.
And it all happened alongside something huge. Early 20th century, Jewish immigrants are coming to Palestine, and Hebrew, it's the perfect fit. A language of unity, bridging cultures, creating a national identity.
Language reflecting our past and shaping our future. Now Hebrew's thriving, spoken all over. And it goes back to people like Ben Yehuda.
It really makes you think about what lasts. Language, it's not just communication, it's culture, history, what connects us.
We've covered a lot. Hebrew, from ancient times through changes to this amazing comeback. What a language. Hopefully this has made you even more curious about Hebrew, all its little details, its history. Maybe you'll check out poetry by Yehuda Amichai or even just modern Hebrew slang. It's fascinating. Whatever you explore, we hope you keep finding that joy, that wonder in the world of languages. From all of us here at The Deep Dive, happy exploring.